Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Enjoy Beekeeping. Today I want to talk to you about thinking outside the box. What does that mean? Well, stay tuned, you'll find out next. I'm next to one of my non-traditional beehives. If you're new to the channel, this is actually a horizontal hive, and it's a Layens hive. That's the proper name for this particular hive model. And today I want to talk to you about a few features and advantages that this hive has over the traditional Langstroth boxes that you typically see most beekeepers using. I'm going to address some of the key things that make this hive so advantageous, and just to let you know that when I first came across the whole concept of using this type of a hive, the Layens hive, I really fought it. And you could kind of say I fought the Layens and the Layens won. Just like the song, I fought the law and the law won. Well, the Layens won. And I wanted to let you know that I really tried hard to go around using the traditional Langstroth frames. I kind of wanted to circumvent the whole concept of using the Layens system because it uses a unique frame size. And I thought, oh my goodness, you know, you can get Langstroth frames for $1 unassembled when you buy them in bulk, and all you got to do is just air staple them together and you can pop them out just like that. With the Layens hives, they're not mainstream, and I thought, man, if there's only a better way that we could just use the Langstroth frame and maybe make it deeper. And so I tried that, and I'll show you a couple of the hives in the yard. So this hive is one of my horizontal hives, and it's only made with 3/4 inch plywood. The bees in here are doing incredibly well, and I believe it's because we have such a mild winter here in northeast Georgia that I can get away with using the 3/4 inch walls. But again, I've got a lot of insulation in the roof, so the heat loss here is still very minimal. The bees in here are absolutely rocking. They are doing fantastic. They're bringing in lots of pollen. They're raising lots of brood. I just checked in here. I peeked under the hood the other day. They're ready to have a great 2021 season, just like you. As you can see in this image, I've got some, these are basically a Lazutin hive, which is just another way of saying it's a double deep Langstroth hive, and it's a horizontal hive. You don't have to add any supers to it. And when you handle these frames, they're kind of clunky and bulky, and they don't really handle well. And until you experience what it's like to actually work a Layens hive, it may be a little bit hard to, you know, wrap your mind around. But I will say this: when I take my captured swarms from my Layens swarm traps and I bring them home to the bee yard and I start to unpack them and put them into their permanent houses, and then when I do future hive inspections, it is just a pleasure to work with them. They're easy to handle, they're deep so that the bees really enjoy drawing down, and they're able to make a nice healthy brood pattern, a very nice circular brood pattern with the classic arch of honey across the top. And that's what they winter on. And so this hive, right now, because we're starting to experience those highs and lows of springtime temperatures. So today is almost 80, but the forecast for the next 2 days is going to take the weather right back down to about 40 degrees, lots of rain, and in fact later in the week it'll be back down just above freezing. So as you can imagine, these bees right now are very excited about raising brood, and that's what they're doing. In fact, I got in this hive just the other day and they were starting to just explode. And I will promise you, the first chance this particular colony gets, they would cast a swarm. But what I want to do is manage it in such a way that I can make a split from it. I'd rather just do it that way than have to get them down out of the plum tree or the tulip bush that we have growing in the yard. So sometimes I see them out the kitchen window in a big brown clump in the trees or bushes, and I'll go out and I'll put them into a swarm catcher or a permanent hive. But I'd rather just manage it by doing a split on my own, on my schedule, when it's convenient for me. So what I did was I got into this hive and I started to do some prep work in anticipation for the excitement that's soon to come in about another 30 days. But I just wanted to make mention that one of the key features that makes this hive so advantageous is it's built with dimensional lumber. This is a 2x10 piece of lumber, all of it, in fact, and it's very well insulated, and it keeps the climate inside of this colony very stable. So even if we have a day like today where the temperature is almost 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 3 days later it's going to dip down to just 1 or 2 degrees above freezing. The brood that's being raised in this hive is going to do just fine. We're not going to have the problem that we sometimes experience if we're using the traditional thin-walled Langstroth hives. So right now I've got some Langstroth hives in the bee yard because I've done it that way for the past 12 years. And like I say, I was just kind of fighting against embracing this system because you have to custom make everything. You got to build the hive or buy one if you know somebody that builds them, and I do build these for folks that want to get them. But the point is that you've got to build everything custom, all the way from the hive down to the frames. And so I was really looking for some kind of a shortcut way to continue using Langstroth equipment, and so I made a couple of these Lazutin style or double deep Langstroth horizontal hives, and they just didn't have the look, well, they didn't have the feel. They just really didn't have the right feel to them. They are doing well, but for me as a beekeeper, I like to go in and I like to be able to handle things with ease. And I have to say that hands down, the Layens hive system is so much easier to handle as a beekeeper. And if you're just starting out as a beekeeper, this is an excellent choice to start with. And the reason I say that is because I've gone the traditional route. I've gone and I've learned everything that I knew about bees using Langstroth equipment. And I experienced some of those setbacks, like the ones that I just mentioned, about having chilled brood. We would get these warm temperature days, and then all of a sudden it would just sink down to like 30 degrees Fahrenheit, or maybe even 25 degrees. We get that late spring cold snap, and I would have some losses because of that. Not the case with these. That climate in this hive is very stable. So that brood that's being reared now is going to be successful, and this hive will be ready to split. My guess is it's going to be ready to split in about 30 days, and I'll be able to make that split on my schedule, and I'll be able to expand my apiary, which is one of my short-term goals for this year. I want to do some expansion. So here's what I've learned on. I started day one in my beekeeping journey using Langstroth equipment, and I've pretty much stuck with using medium Langstroth frames. These are 5-frame nukes, and I just stack them up. There's 3 boxes, the 2 blue that you see here and this gray one. That's where all the bees live. The rest of this is just insulation at the top, and the bees are getting excited that I'm here, so I'm going to walk away. Here's another example of one of my Langstroth hives that I still have in use in my bee yard, but every time you see one of my videos, you're going to see fewer and fewer of these beehives because I'm transitioning out of them. I thought about it, and I thought, you know, I could just yank them out of there, shake all the bees off into a Layens hive, and then put the frames on a table saw and cut them down. You could do that. I don't know, that was just a little bit too much for me to take on at once. So basically what I'm doing is, a lot of people like to buy nukes from me. So I sell the nukes out of these, and then I'll probably cut these frames down as I start selling the nukes off. And if they cast any swarms that I get go into the new Layens hives that I've got in the bee yard. But this is what I learned on, and there's so many more advantages to using the Layens hives than what I've listed in this video today. The classroom course that I teach really goes into the nuts and bolts of all the pros and cons of using these hives versus the Layens hives. And I think you're going to find you're pleasantly surprised, as I was. Again, remember, I was resisting getting away from using these traditional sized frames. Another advantage to this hive system is, in the spring with the Langstroth hive, you want to expand as well because you don't want the bees to cast a swarm before you're ready for it. And what you need to do is you want to add a super. Well, when you add a super onto a hive, if you happen to add it too early, you can get chilled brood because you've got all this volume of space above the brood nest that's just empty. It's not warm like the rest of the hive. The bees in here have a nice microclimate inside, and they don't have to worry about the heat loss or that rapid heat loss that you get in a traditional hive. So again, it's all about the climate inside the Layens hive that makes this such an ideal choice for beekeepers of any skill level. So even if you're a long-time beekeeper, like 10 years or more, and you've been, hearing things about the Layens hive, I can tell you, as a beekeeper that's been doing this for almost, I think 13 years now, I think I'm coming up on 13 years. If I had learned this system when I first began, I would have been that much further ahead as a beekeeper in just probably a couple years, because I would have had way more success in raising bees and being able to expand my apiary. But anyway, you're really going to enjoy the look and feel and just the handling of this particular hive. What's nice about it is you don't have to add anything to it. The hive is complete just the way it is. All you need to do is when you go in and do a spring inspection like I did here with this one, I wanted to just make sure that they didn't get overcrowded. So all I had to do was move the follower board over and add a few empty frames towards the entrance so that they've got lots of room to build. But the nice thing is even though I added more space, I gave them more volume to work with, I don't have to worry about that chilling the brood because the climate is so well controlled. This roof has a lot of insulation in the top, and as you know, heat for the most part rises. So that's not going to be a problem. These bees are snug as a bug, which they are. So anyway, I'm making jokes and I don't even realize it. But they're nice and snug inside this hive. And I also get asked, someone just sent me an email and they asked me, is it true that you really only need to inspect these hives twice a year? And the answer is yes, but it's not really a catch, but the way to arrive at that level in beekeeping is you kind of need to master this just a little bit, and the learning curve on this is much quicker than it is for the traditional Langstroth method. So I'm going to show you how many times I've been in this hive since I took the swarm trap down, and back in, I think it was last April or May. So I'm going to take a look and we'll look at it right now. Okay. All right, this is the log for this particular hive. I just keep it in a little plastic sleeve, and it's just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I just take a pen or pencil with me when I'm doing hive inspections, and I mark down how many times I've been in this hive. So I'll give you the history of this particular Layens hive. So on May 1st of 2020, I brought the swarm home. This was a swarm trap that I had hanging out about 10 miles from my house, and it was there probably about 30 days, and I came by and I saw the bees were there. So I just came back in an evening on May 1st, right at sunset, and I brought them home. And then there's only 3 more times that I've been inside this hive. The next time I was here was on June 30th, so about 2 months later, just to check on them. And the notes that I wrote down was they were doing okay, but they were a relatively small colony, just slightly runny. The bees were a little bit excited when you would open them up, and I put some hive beetle traps in there. Then I didn't come back for another, let's see, that was June 30th. I came back September 6th, and I had tons of hive beetles in here. We have those here in the south. So any of you folks that are living in the southern climates, you know all about them. I don't need to tell you about them. If you don't have hive beetles where you are, be happy. But anyway, so I put some hive beetle traps in here. There was lots of brood, but they were fairly light on the amount of honey they had. They really didn't have anything for me to harvest this year. Now, I closed them up for the winter. That was the last time I was in them back in the year 2020. Now, back on February 24th, like I say, this is just a few days ago now, I opened them up again, and they were doing really, really good. In fact, I added 4 empty frames to the front entrance part where they're coming and going here. I moved everything over. I moved the brood nest, and they were occupying about a total of 10 frames. This particular hive holds 20. They were occupying 10 frames. I pushed them away from the entrance. I added about 4 more in the front, and I just moved the follower board all the way down to the end. So theoretically, I really don't have to come back in here until I want to do a fall honey harvest. So theoretically, that could be my first inspection for the year 2021. I could come back in the late fall, pull some honey, and winterize them. So it's true that you can actually do this twice a year. So that's the kind of the gist of this video, is to show you that there are real advantages to using this hive system. So if you've got bees in an out-yard that's far from you, or let's say that you're dealing with some physical limitations, and this gentleman wrote me an email the other day, and that was his case. He has some physical limitations. He says, you know, I want to keep bees, but I can only do just so much. And he asked me, can I really only have to go in there twice a year? So the answer is yes. Will I go in this hive before October or November of 2021? Yeah, probably. And the reason for that is because I'm going to make a split or 2 from this colony. Other than that, I wouldn't need to. So I'm going to close this up again, because the bees are starting to not understand why they see this cover the way it's positioned. So I'm going to close it back up. There we go. So now the situation looks fairly normal to them. Again, you can see how they were starting to fly around in the front. But I just wanted to share this information with folks that are considering using this hive style. So yes, it's true, everything's custom. But if enough people start to see the advantages of using this hive system, I have a really good feeling that this could very well become a mainstream hive that we use here in the USA. They are just truly a pleasure to work. You have healthier bees. It's easier as a beekeeper because you don't have to panic if you're not here to add supers. All you got to do is prep them once for spring, give them the amount of volume that they need, and you can forget about them. So if you want to take that vacation, if things open up this year with COVID and you get to go on vacation, you can go on vacation during the spring buildup and not have to panic that you're not adding supers in time on these particular beehives. So I hope that this helps you. If you'd like to have some very specific and very focused information about managing the Layens hive system, I've got a natural beekeeping course. I'll put the link in the description below. There's a free video if you want to check it out. It's the Introduction to Natural Beekeeping. It's about 45 minutes long. It'll kind of give you a test drive of what the course is all about, and if you decide you like it, you can have at it and go for the whole course. But again, it's very focused. It'll take you from 0 to 60 in 6 hours worth of classroom course. That's how long the whole course is. And I always say that that'll take you from knowing almost nothing about bees to accelerating your learning curve to where you can actually start doing this the next day. All you got to do is get in your wood shop and start building, or find somebody that's building these, and you can get these from my website if you want to order. Give me a call. I'm just beginning to start shipping out some of these now, and I can give you some more information on this if you have questions. So I hope that this answers some questions that you may have had about using the Layens hive. And friends, the whole point of these videos is so that you can enjoy beekeeping. So we'll see you in the next video.